packing this room in Midland, Michigan. I had to have evidence, so thank you.
Yes.
So I am so excited to be here today because not only do we have a chance to win back the State House in Michigan, we have a chance to flip this seat here in the 98th District. And we're going to do it by electing Sarah Schulz. It may seem like a daunting task, right? There hasn't been a Democrat elected here since 1920.
Yeah, and look what happened.
But I love having a 98th anniversary to flip the 98th district. The fact is, though, that we can win these seats, even against insurmountable odds. So I want to tell you a little bit about my race in 2016 and how we were able to win against everybody telling me that it was impossible to do this. So I decided to run for office because I was a teacher in Detroit, and the minute I stepped into my classroom, I got appointed department chair. And I walked in and didn't have any materials. I didn't have a curriculum. I didn't know how I was going to do. But like any good son of an immigrant, my dad's from Malta, and a hardworking Mexican-American mother, I worked with what I had. So I walked into my classroom and I said, okay, how can I make sure that my kids have the best education possible? And so I worked as hard as I could. I made sure that they had the best reading, that we increased their reading scores, that we did everything we could to set them up for success. But I also knew that I couldn't address their poverty. I couldn't address their transportation issues. And I couldn't fix the fact that one of my kids got kicked out of his home because he's LGBT and his sister, who he was living with, didn't agree with his lifestyle. I couldn't fix those facts as a teacher. But what I could do is step up and say, I can go run for office because I can make these policy changes at a larger level to make a difference for not only my students, but for working families like mine back at home. And so I decided to run. I ran in a primary with 3 other candidates, one of whom, who was a Democrat, elected to the township board in my district for as long as I've been alive. And everybody thought she was the candidate, but because I put together a team of young people who worked really hard to knock on doors every single day, we knocked on 24,000 doors in the primary, and I won by 150 votes.
Wow.
Now, you may think 24,000 doors, that sounds like a crazy amount of doors to knock. I did this with a team of 6 consistent volunteers. We knocked on doors every single day. So if I look at this room today with 200 people, Sarah's not going to only win, she's going to win in a landslide. So we went into the general election with the same mentality. I was running against a longtime councilman. We knew the odds were going to be against me because I'd never been elected to office before. We did the same strategy. We knocked on doors. We had conversations with people. So we knocked on another 36,000 doors for a total of 60,000 in 2016. Personally, I knocked on 17,000 doors, it was a lot of work. I wore out 3 pairs of shoes. But it's worth it because the conversations you can have with people are how you connect with folks, regardless of party. That they knew they were voting for me, for Darren Camilleri, because I was going to stand up for their schools, I was going to help fix our roads, and I was going to make sure that people were put to work with good paying jobs. And they were advocating for a representative who shared those values. And when I think about how it's possible to flip these seats, it's because people knew who I was, and they heard my story, my authentic self. That my family came to this country with the hopes of opportunity, just like many people across Metro Detroit, in the belief that if you work hard enough, you can achieve success at every level. And that's the type of candidate that we need to put out, and I know that that's the type of candidate that Sarah Schulz is here in Midland. So when I talk about all those numbers, it's incredibly important to have a strong team behind her in this candidacy. But it's also important to advocate for the shared values that we have, that we're talking about and advocating for our working families every single day up in Lansing. And I know that's somebody that Sarah is going to do. So when I talk about our values, it's something that we should be not taking lightly, because to me, our values, the values of these working families, aren't often being represented when big decisions are made up in Lansing. Usually you see people with corporate interests and special interests and lobbyists who end up pulling the strings to make policy. We don't have a people-centered legislature anymore. But when it comes down to making these decisions about funding our classrooms, about fixing our roads, about protecting working families through protecting prevailing wage and unions in this country. We need more voices like ours at the table. And our voice is going to be amplified even stronger by having Sarah elected and on my team up in Lansing, hopefully by the end of this year. So today, my ask of you is to continue your commitment to Sarah and to the work for a better future for the families here in this district, so that if each of you commit to doing one shift of voter contact, one shift of volunteer recruitment, among your friends and families and among your neighbors in this community, you'll be setting Sarah and her team up for success. There's so much more work to be done, and every day, as we move one step closer to what I hope is a successful election this year, I am confident that if you join me and Sarah and her team and the thousands of people who are going to be impacted by this campaign that you are going to be engaging in, I know that our values will be represented in Lansing. We will flip the State House, and we'll elect Sarah Schulz as your next state representative.